Big fight night featuring a local boxer this weekend as Newark, New Jersey's own Shakur Stevenson will be fighting in his hometown on Saturday night at the Prudential Center. Now, Stevenson, he will defend his WBC lightweight title against Artem Harutyunyan. So let's break it down with the great boxing play-by-play voice. Joining me in studio, my guy, Curran Bhatia. Curran, what's going on, man?
Dexter, happy Independence Day weekend. We get to talk some boxing. I mean, what's better than that?
Look, boxing on Independence Day weekend is pretty good. I hope you had a good holiday, and we're going to get right into it. And Curran, let's start with this. I want to go with a stylistic breakdown here because Shakur Stevenson, he's been known for his slick defensive style. I think that's his bag. That's what most people know him for. How do you think this style that he has is going to match up against Harutyunyan's more aggressive approach that we've seen from him?
The thing about Shakur Stevenson, he's a champion, he's young, only 27 years old, he's a southpaw, he's got it all, right? The one knock on him that people seem to have is they want to see more knockouts, right? He has less than a 50% knockout percentage. But I would push back on him having a defensive style. I actually think he has a precision style, accuracy, power punches. He doesn't always get the knockout, but sometimes he just wears you down to the point where it'll be a TKO win, or he's landed the body shot before, he's dropped opponents before. So it just depends on the opponent, the matchup, but the precision is there, the accuracy is there, all the tools are there for Shakur Stevenson. Now, you mentioned how is that going to match up against Artem Harutyunyan? Yeah. So last time out, we saw Artem Harutyunyan take on Frank Martin, right? This was Artem's first time coming here from Germany, and this was his chance against an undefeated opponent. Now, Frank Martin isn't known as a knockout puncher. Artem almost went down in the 11th round. He did take a knee in the 12th round. So that was his opportunity to test himself, right, against some of the top fighters here. So I think if Artem is actually aggressive, that's going to play into Shakur's hands. And I think that will lead to Shakur getting openings and getting the knockout win. So I would be very careful if I was Artem Harutyunyan, because you know that he's going to want more opportunities like this to challenge for a title. And if you're Shakur Stevenson, there definitely is a little bit of pressure because he's looking at his peers, the other champions in his division, like Tank Davis, like Vasily Lomachenko. They've been winning recently by knockout. So maybe the pressure is on. He's fighting at home. I think he's going to want to get that knockout win, that big spectacular win, but we'll see what happens on Saturday night.
We'll see what happens, but a good point that he has to be a little bit careful, and Artem Harutyunyan also needs to be careful. You don't want to be too aggressive with a fighter like Shakur who can download that information and then use that against you. So turning to Artem Harutyunyan, I got to ask you this, Curran, what are the key factors or strengths that he needs to capitalize on to secure a win against, I think we might both agree, a technically superior opponent here in Stevenson?
Absolutely. Look, I don't think you're going out on a limb saying Shakur Stevenson is more technically sound than Artem Harutyunyan. Stevenson undefeated, Harutyunyan has the one loss. So you say, well, what are the advantages that Artem has? Well, he doesn't have the size advantage, doesn't have the age advantage. He's coming here from across the world. He lives and trains in Germany. Shakur Stevenson has his home field advantage here in Newark. So all the advantages, Stevenson is the champion, all the advantages are in Stevenson's favor. So what can Artem do? Well, one thing I noticed, I was at the press conference on Wednesday. It seems like Artem is trying to get the mental mindset advantage. And how he was doing that, he was trying to butter up Stevenson a little bit, right? Artem showed up. He was very complimentary of Shakur Stevenson. He was saying all these positive things. And it was actually a funny moment in the press conference. Shakur turned to Artem. He said, hey, wait a minute. I know what you're trying to do right there. Hold on 1 second. I know what you're trying to do. So I think that is Artem's best chance here. Just try to get, win the game before the game, right? The match before the match in terms of getting that mindset advantage. I don't think it's going to work. We saw him try that. But obviously being in a good place mentally is going to be a good thing for Artem Harutyunyan. It's a very tough challenge in Shakur Stevenson.
I understand what he's trying to do there, but I think if your opponent keeps game on this, right, sees what you're doing before you're doing it, maybe you've lost already before it started?
Exactly. Well, it's unfortunate. You don't want to say you've lost before, but that is probably his best shot because the physical advantages just aren't there.
They just aren't there. Okay, so moves me on to this. You kind of touched upon this here, Curran. Two-part question.
Sure.
And I think people want to know, there could be pressure on Shakur Stevenson in this fight. So, Curran, is there pressure on Shakur Stevenson in this fight? And if so, how significant is it with him defending this title at home in Newark at the Prudential Center? And do you think that impacts or adds to how much pressure there'll be and how that can impact his performance here?
This Saturday, July 6th, Shakur Stevenson is fighting at home in Prudential Center in Newark. Shakur is from Newark. He's defending his title there. Now, I don't think there's going to be added pressure because Shakur has already fought there 3 times. He's won all of those fights. 2 of those were by knockout. So he's comfortable fighting in Newark. And actually, this is a absolutely stacked card. There's a lot of really good young talent. On the undercard, the co-main event, O'Shaquie Foster, who's a great young fighter, is defending his belt. There's also Keyshawn Davis, who's an up-and-coming fighter who's ready to challenge for a world title. Abdullah Mason is only 20 years old. He's a spectacular fighter. He's been added to this main card. So a lot of young talent has been added to this card. So I think what Shakur's done is actually make Prudential Center and Newark, New Jersey a little bit of a hotbed here for young talent on display. And like we said, this is the 4th time Shakur is fighting there. So I don't think there's going to be pressure. I actually think this is a huge advantage for Shakur Stevenson fighting at home, because just like in any other sport, Dexter, in the NFL, NBA, we talk about home field or home court advantage. That's a big deal. That's what Shakur Stevenson is bringing into this fight, the home field advantage. And I think that's going to be an advantage for Shakur, so I don't see the pressure there. I see a positive there for Shakur.
All right, say that he's comfortable, 4th time fighting in Newark at the Prudential Center. No pressure for Shakur Stevenson. When we go back to Artem Harutyunyan,
yes,
there's no doubt, Curran, that this is a huge stage for him. So what does a win against a top-tier opponent like Stevenson do for Harutyunyan's career at this point? He wants a win. You know he's hungry. He's already playing the mind games here. What does a win on Saturday night do for him?
Of course, Artem Harutyunyan didn't fly here from Germany to take a loss, right? Obviously, he knows what this opportunity means. There's only so many times that you can challenge for a world title. And so Artem had a chance last time out against Frank Martin. That didn't go his way. So he learned from that opportunity. And what he actually said was, hey, I was a little bit tired in the later rounds. My training wasn't where it was supposed to be. So Artem is saying, hey, for this fight, I'm ready. I'm hungry. Now, we know that Shakur is a massive favorite, and Shakur Stevenson has earned that right because he's faced better opposition. He's looked spectacular in the ring, completely undefeated, flawless record. He's young, in his prime. He's a champion. So all of those things are in favor of Shakur Stevenson. But that's why they fight the fights, because anything could happen, right? One punch can change anything in boxing. So let's just say, hypothetically, if Artem Harutyunyan was able to somehow get the victory, right, what would happen then? Well, Stevenson would certainly probably get a rematch because he was the champion losing his belt in an unexpected manner. That would most likely call for an immediate rematch. Now, if Artem was somehow able to get past that in decisive fashion, well, that opens up. Now, Artem's a champion in that division. The other champions, we mentioned Tank Davis, Vasily Lomachenko. They're most likely going to fight. And I actually spoke to Shakur at the press conference on Wednesday. I said, hey, do you want a chance at Tank versus Vasily winner? He said, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. So in this scenario, if Artem was to win, maybe he would get his opportunity against Tank versus Loma winner to unify, right? That's what we want to see. So at the end of the day, that's what would happen if Artem Harutyunyan was able to be successful. The one thing I would say, the one thing going for Artem here, is even if he looks very good, that can help his stock go up against such a talented elite fighter like Shakur Stevenson. That can help his career. In terms of winning the fight, I mean, that's going to be a very tough task for all the reasons we talked about.
Right, but if he does perform well, does
Correct.
show well, does show some toughness, loses on a decision and is close, there are things that can bode well for him going forward.
Exactly.
All right, Curran, here we go. Prediction time. Based on their styles, strengths, and the stakes that you mentioned here, what's your prediction for this fight? Is it likely that we're going to see a knockout, or is this going to go to distance, and who do you have winning? Tell me.
I'm taking Shakur Stevenson. I believe he's going to get the knockout against Artem Harutyunyan. Now, I think Shakur has a little extra motivation because of what everyone's been saying about his power, right? He has less than 50% knockouts in his fights. But like we said, he can knock people out. You can look at some of his opponents. He's dropped them. He's hurt them to the body. He's landed the straight left hand. He's a southpaw. He's in his prime. So all the advantages are there for Shakur Stevenson. And I do think he can get the knockout when he needs to. And I think he will in this fight. The other extra motivation, we talked about Tank Davis and Vasily Lomachenko, fellow champions in this division. Now, most likely they're going to fight each other. And Shakur is seeing that. In Lomachenko's last fight out, he was able to get the knockout win against Kambosos. In Tank's last fight out, he had the spectacular knockout win against Frank Martin. So I think Shakur is looking at his contemporaries, right, his peers in terms of champions in the division, saying, wow, I see these guys getting these spectacular knockouts. I want to do that too. I think that adds a little bit of extra pressure, but I think all the ingredients are there for a spectacular knockout. Shakur's fighting at home, defending his title, right? He's facing an opponent who, like we said, maybe there's an aggressive style that will play into Shakur's favor. And Shakur is hearing all the noise around him. The one knock. Hey, are you going to get knockouts like some of these other champions in the division? So with that said, I think it'll be a really fun night in Newark. I think it's going to be a great night, but I do think there's levels to this game, right? And I think the difference, the experience edge, just the quality, the precision, the accuracy, everything we're talking about, all the advantages are there for Shakur Stevenson. So I'm going to pick the champion in Shakur to win by spectacular knockout. And I do think this is going to be a big moment for him because I think he's going to say, hey, I shut up all the doubters. I defended my title. I did what I needed to do in there and put himself in position to get the winner of Tank Davis versus Vasily Lomachenko. Like I said, I spoke to him. He said he wants it. The public wants it. So hopefully we see it happen.
All right, the public wants it. It will be fantastic for the lightweight division to have a chance to unify all the belts there. But first up, on July 6th, Saturday night, Curran Bhatia, he will be there covering Shakur Stevenson versus Artem Harutyunyan. Should be a really good one, interesting one in Newark. That is Curran Bhatia, once again, one of the best voices in the sport of boxing in terms of play-by-play. Curran, good to talk some boxing with you this Independence Day weekend. Enjoy the fight.
Dexter, enjoy the fights. Happy long weekend. Enjoy if you're doing a barbecue. Put on some boxing. Enjoy some boxing.
There you go. You can do a little boxing and barbecue. That always goes well. Should go well. Thanks, Curran.
Thank you.